Hello, this is Professor Chandana Goswami, and I will be discussing on the National Education Policy 2020, what is in store for higher education institutions. Before I begin, this is my disclaimer. This work is based purely on my understanding after having read the draft as well as the final NEP. It is not exhaustive. It focuses on university level education, and viewers are requested to read the policy before arriving at any conclusion on the NEP. Having said that, let me begin. What was the philosophy that influenced this policy? There were these following 4-5 points. One is Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted at the UN General Assembly 1948, which talks for education for all. Then the International Commission on Education for the 21st Century submitted a report to UNESCO in 1996. In our own country, we have the Right to Education 2009, and the Sustainable Development Goal point number 4 also talks of education. And we are also influenced by our ancient universities of Nalanda and Takshashila. The committee that created this policy had a dictum from the MHRD. So this was the dictum. There was a target gross enrollment ratio of 50% to be achieved by 2035. In Assam, our gross enrollment ratio as in 2016-17 was 17.2%, and in India's current gross enrollment ratio is approximately 25.2%. So we have a long way to go. Then the policy must be relevant and applicable for 2 decades, because we are projecting India to be the third largest economy in 12 years. We will be next to USA and China. And we must prepare our younger generation for the 4th industrial revolution. What do we mean by this? We mean that in the future, jobs will be creative and multidisciplinary. So, critical thinking, problem-solving ability, and communication skills will be required. The committee had examined the drawbacks of the existing system and found the following. There is early specialization and streaming of students. In Assam itself, we can see that from class 9 onwards, you have a choice between advanced mathematics or some other subject. Then we have single stream colleges. We have colleges which are focused only on commerce or which are focused only on arts. And these colleges have low student strength and therefore inadequate faculty also. There is lack of access to education in disadvantaged areas. There is lack of autonomy, overdose of regulation, lack of research, and less emphasis on development of cognitive skills and learning outcomes. Therefore, the idea was that higher education must build up expertise that the society will need for the next 25 years and beyond. And that is why this policy uses the term liberal arts education. So let us understand what it is. Please don't be misled by the word arts. It does not refer to humanities. It is an all-inclusive word. So liberal arts education means flexibility in curriculum and novel and engaging course options that will be put on offer to students, in addition to rigorous specialization in a subject or subjects. There is going to be inclusion of lessons in seva or service as a part of liberal education. Internships and research opportunities will be built into the education system. There will be flexible bachelor's degree options, which I will discuss later, and overall professional competence within liberal education. Again, please don't be misled by the word liberal. It is nothing liberal in the sense that you do not have to study. You have to study, but here you are getting a flexibility in the choice of your subjects. So the pedagogy will also have to adapt accordingly, and pedagogy will have an increased emphasis on communication, discussion, debate, research, and opportunities for cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary thinking. The assessment methods must also be scientifically designed to continuously improve learning and test the application of knowledge. Why are we insisting on liberal arts education? Number one, to prepare for jobs beyond the first one. Second, ideas and concepts from other disciplines can transform your work. Third, to develop both sides of the brain, that is your creative as well as analytical side. And fourth, to prepare for the fourth revolution, the one which we had just mentioned. India has a long tradition of holistic and multidisciplinary learning in the so-called liberal arts, from universities such as Dickusses and Nalanda to extensive literatures combining subjects across fields. Ancient books described education as knowledge of the 64 kalas or arts, and among these 64 arts were included subjects such as singing, playing musical instruments, and painting, but also scientific fields such as engineering, medicine, and mathematics. The notion of knowledge of many arts, that is what is called liberal arts in modern times, must be brought back to the education, Indian education, as it is exactly the kind of education that will be required for the 21st century. Let me share you inputs from two universities in the US. Princeton University talks of liberal education as a liberal arts education challenges you to consider not only how to solve problems, but also trains you to ask which problems to solve and why, preparing you for positions of leadership and a life of service to the nation and all of humanity. We provide a liberal arts education to all of our undergraduates, including those who major in engineering. So that was Princeton University. Let's move to Minnesota State University. They say, a liberal arts education refers to college studies that provide general knowledge and develop intellectual ability. This type of education can prepare you for many fields in today's workplace. So our aim is that we should prepare our students for the future. Our aim is for occupational readiness. Therefore, pedagogy shall have strong connection to the world of work, and we must develop capacities for employment and livelihood through internships, and also by counseling students to identify where they would be happy working. So in order to achieve this liberal arts education, the policy says that there must be multidisciplinary institutions, at least one in each district by 2030. And the size of these institutions must be large in the sense that it must have about 5,000 students, and it is hoped to achieve by 2040. Autonomy is to be given to the higher education institutions. Credit will be given to programs done in open distance learning mode if the HEI doesn't offer those programs in class mode. For example, your institution may be offering right now only science and arts courses, but you do not have commerce. So therefore, you can get your students registered for commerce related courses in the distance mode, and credit is to be given for it. Phasing out of affiliated colleges in 15 years. There will be no more affiliated colleges because they all have to convert into degree granting institutions. And the key word of the policy is light but tight regulation. The policy also talks of increased access, equity and inclusion. So therefore, public education, that is government funded education, has to increase. Scholarships by private or philanthropic universities for disadvantaged and underprivileged students need to be instituted. Online education will be offered through open distance learning mode. Infrastructure and learning materials must be accessible and available to the learners with disabilities. In this way, we are going to increase access, equity, and inclusion of socio-economically disadvantaged groups. The policy has given separate guidelines to the government and the HEIS for ensuring inclusion of socio-economically disadvantaged groups. I have just put a couple of points here. This list is not exhaustive. So some of the things that are suggested are: they must have financial assistance and scholarships, conduct outreach programs on higher education opportunities and scholarships among the SEDGs, degree courses to be taught in Indian language and bilingually, ensure buildings and facilities are disabled friendly, enforce no discrimination rules. Like I said, this list is not exhaustive and the guidelines that is given separately for the government and separately for the HEI. The policy talks of holistic education. So for attainment of holistic education, the curricula should include credit-based courses in the areas of community engagement and services, environmental education, and value-based education. Global citizenship education will be provided to empower learners to become aware of and understand global issues and to become active promoters of more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, and sustainable societies. The main thrust of this policy regarding higher education is to end the fragmentation of higher education by transforming higher education institutions into large multidisciplinary universities, colleges, and HEI clusters or knowledge hubs, each of which will aim to have 3,000 students or more. This would help increase resource efficiency, both material and human, across higher education. The policy talks of giving autonomy to the HEIs. That is why we have said that all colleges will convert into degree granting institution. All institutions will be free to design their own curriculum, do their own people management process. The Board of Governors, which is the apex body, will prepare an institutional development plan. Public institutions to be funded by the government, private institutions to be funded privately. And nowhere in this policy is the word HEFA mentioned, Higher Education Funding Agency, which we have been hearing for the last 2-3 years. So all government institutions will be funded by the government. And institutional leaders to be prepared years in advance. A step has already been taken in this direction, where this program called Leadership for Academicians, LEAP, L-E-A-P, has been instituted by the then MHRD. This is an exercise in trying to prepare future vice chancellors. The policy foresees 3 types of HEIs. One that will be predominantly research focused but will also do some amount of teaching. Second, predominantly focused on teaching but will also be doing research. And third is the autonomous degree granting colleges. And just because you are in one of these categories doesn't mean that it is going to be rigid and forever. You will have the flexibility to move across these three types. The policy also talks of creating a multidisciplinary education and research universities and Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation. The second institution is going to be created in order to make high quality learning materials and other important written and spoken material available to the public in various Indian and foreign languages. Of course, we have understood that the school education structure is going to follow a 5+3+3+4 pattern. And after 4 years of completing the high school stage, that is class 9, 10, 11, 12, these students will be ready for higher education. And therefore, to get into any higher education institution, they will have to sit through a test. A national testing agency is proposed to be set up. This will work to offer a high quality common aptitude test as well as specialized common subject exams in the sciences, humanities, languages, arts and vocational subjects, at least twice every year. These exams shall test conceptual understanding and the ability to apply knowledge and shall aim to eliminate the need for taking coaching for these exams. We are trying to do away with the system of multiple entrance tests and the huge level of coaching that is done in order to crack these entrance exams. Students will be able to choose the subjects for taking the test, and each university will be able to see each student's individual subject portfolio and admit students into their programs based on individual interest and talents. So your higher education institutions do not have to conduct their individual entrance exams anymore. The undergraduate degree will be of either 3 or 4 year duration with multiple exit options. So you complete 1 year, you will get a certificate. You complete 2 years, you will get a diploma. 3 years, you will get a bachelor's degree. The 4-year multidisciplinary bachelor's program shall allow the opportunity to focus on chosen major and minors as per the choices of the student. Like I mentioned earlier, that liberal education doesn't mean everything is very easy. You only have the flexibility to choose your courses. And by the time you are in the 3rd year, you will decide which area you are going to specialize. So therefore, you can have a major and a minor combination to study. And that will be a little rigorous. The 4-year program may also lead to a degree with research. Please don't mix it up with PhD. It is a bachelor's degree with research if the student completes a rigorous research project in their major areas of study. So after the bachelor's program, there is going to be a master's program. 2-year program with the 2nd year devoted entirely to research for those who have completed the 3-year bachelor's program. So if you have done a 3 years bachelor, you do a 2 years master. If you have done a 4 years bachelor, you are going to do a 1 year's master. And of course, your integrated 5-year program will still be there. Undertaking a PhD shall require either a master's degree or a 4-year bachelor's degree with research. An MPhil program is going to be discontinued. There is a concept of academic bank of credit. Here, what is going to happen is that we will digitally store the academic credits earned from various recognized HEIS so that the degree from an HEI can be awarded taking into account credits earned. Remember the example that I had given of an institution which has only science and arts subjects but does not have commerce. And we suggested that these courses on commerce can be done through a distance mode or an online mode. Alright, so whatever you have completed through this distance mode or an online mode is going to be considered and included, and these are going to be stored. So this is the academic bank of credit. Talking of PhDs, there is a reorientation in terms of PhD thinking. All fresh PhD entrants, irrespective of the discipline, will be required to take credit-based courses in teaching, education, pedagogy, or writing. They should be exposed to pedagogical practices, designing curriculum, credible evaluation systems, and communication. Because we believe that most of them who will complete their PhD will go into academics in the future. PhD students will also have a minimum number of hours of actual teaching experience gathered through teaching assistantships and other means. Since we are talking of research, let me also mention that a National Research Foundation is proposed to be set up. So this is going to be a fund competitive peer-reviewed grants proposal of all types across disciplines. Then it will seed, grow, and facilitate research at academic institutions through mentoring. It will act as a liaison between researchers and the government and the industry, so that as a researcher you know what your stakeholders are looking out for, that is the government and the industry, and vice versa. The government and industry will also have an access to what knowledge is being created through research and can it be used. And finally, this foundation will recognize outstanding research and progress. So let's move to faculty now. This policy is all in favor of motivating faculty to deliver the best. It says that every classroom shall have access to the latest educational technology that enables better learning experience. It also says that teachers should not have excessive teaching duties and the teacher-student ratio should be reasonable, so that teachers enjoy doing the class and there is adequate time for interaction with students, for conducting research, and also doing other university activities. And faculty who is appointed in one particular institution will not be transferable across institutions, so that there is a continuity and then they feel connected and committed. Faculty will be given the freedom to design own curricular, teaching methodology. They will suggest textbooks, reading material. They will design their assignments, assessments. This much of freedom is going to be given. Excellence will be further incentivized through appropriate rewards, promotions, recognitions, and movement into institutional leadership. But yes, those who don't deliver also are going to be held accountable. For faculty recruitment, a tenure track shall be put in place. Of course, there will be a fast track promotion system also. If you perform better than the others, you will be promoted faster. And the parameters for the purposes of this tenure, among other things, will include peer and student reviews, innovations in teaching and pedagogy, quality and impact of research, professional development activities, and other forms of services. And all these parameters will be developed by the HEI, which will be clearly stated in the institutional development, and higher education institution is going to be influenced by the one regulator, one accreditation agency, one standard setting, and then a funding agency. So the structure is going to look something like this. We'll have a regulatory council, we will have an accreditation council, a general education council along with professional standard setting board, and a grants council. So this first vertical, National Higher Education Regulatory Council. It will function as the common single point regulator for the higher education sector, including teacher education and excluding medical and legal education, thus eliminating the duplication and disjunction of regulatory efforts by multiple regulatory agencies that exist at the current time. The second vertical is a meta-accrediting body called the National Accreditation Council. The accreditation will be carried out by an independent ecosystem of accrediting institutions and supervised by the NAC. And all HEIs will try to attain the highest level of accreditation over the next 15 years. So towards the end, we will have a binary system, like either you are accredited or you are not accredited. So this is as per the global practice, which means that we will do away with our present system of these different grades that we have. The third vertical is Higher Education Grants Council, which will carry out funding and financing of higher education. And it will be entrusted with disbursement of scholarships, developmental funds for launching new focus areas and expanding quality program offerings at HEIs across disciplines and fields. Fourth vertical is General Education Council, which will frame expected learning outcomes for higher educational programs, and the professional standard setting bodies who are going to be members out here will also play a key role. I will take a little time just to explain this General Educational Council and the professional standard setting boards. The GEC shall be constituted as an academic leadership institution to define attributes and learning expected from students who graduate from the higher education system. This would be at all levels, starting from undergraduate to the PhD level. And these attributes must include not only disciplinary knowledge but also cognitive, social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions, which are the outcomes of good education. The National Higher Education Qualification Framework shall be created by this GEC in sync with the National Skills Qualification Framework. Higher education qualifications leading to a degree, diploma or certificate in terms of learning outcomes shall be described by the NHEQF. Such descriptions will enable universities to prepare their own curricular frameworks and curricula with consistency and comparability nationally and also internationally. So the professional councils that we had, like Indian Council of Agriculture Research or the Veterinary Council of India or Council of Architecture, all these, they will act as professional standard setting bodies now. They are going to be members of the General Education Council. So they will draw the curricula, they will lay down academic standards, they will coordinate between teaching, research and extension. However, within all this, higher education institutions may prepare their own curricula. Remember, we talked of giving flexibility to the teacher to design the curriculum. So while this is going to be a guideline, the teacher can innovate within these guidelines. Thus, the professional standard setting boards would also set the standards or expectations in particular fields of learning and practice while having no regulatory role. So earlier, say, Veterinary Council of India, it had a regulatory role. All right. So now, other than setting the standard, it will not have any regulatory role. All teacher education, that means we are talking of the B.Ed programs, M.Ed programs, will happen in multidisciplinary institutions. As of now in Assam, we can see that B.Ed colleges are special colleges. All right. It is not multidisciplinary in nature. And teacher education will be an integral part of the higher education system. The policy has many good things, and it is really a disruptive policy. It proposes to bring about a huge amount of changes. But then there are certain infrastructure prerequisites that I feel is necessary for implementation of this policy. The first is road connectivity. If we are proposing to set up higher educational institutions, multidisciplinary in nature, and we want the students to come to these institutions, there has to be road connectivity. In Assam, we see many small colleges being set up in the villages and towns just because the students do not have this proper road connectivity to travel to a larger college. Second, we will need internet connectivity because we are talking of online education, we are talking of open distance learning. And finally, for internet also to work, electricity has to be there 24 hours a day. So these, I feel personally that these are the prerequisites in order to implement the policy. So with this I conclude. Thank you very much for your time.